உங்கள் தமிழரின் பிம்பம் உங்கள் TVI.
Good afternoon, dear viewers. Welcome to CrossRoads on TVI. I'm your host, Parthi Kamdaval. Today, we remember all the women and men, the Maveerar, that sacrificed their personal dreams and futures so we could live out ours with pride. We take this day to honor their sacrifice and, most of all, their dedication to freedom. Joining us in this discussion are Raj Subramaniam, Kirtika, and Prakash Anthony Pillai, all longtime community activists. And also of note, their opinions and reflections are their own personal and not reflective of any organization. As always, please call us at 416-623-8100 to share your thoughts, questions, feelings about this important week. Welcome to CrossRoads on TVI. The week, as we all know, is a very emotional and a very important week and day for many of us, and really for all of us. I think all families within our community have been affected and have a Maveerar or someone who sacrificed their life for our cause. Given its importance and emotion, what does the day or what does the week mean to you?
For myself, for my first Maveerar, it's always represented kind of the highest ideals of like humanity, like the best of what people can achieve, what they can do, of self-sacrifice, which is become an important counterpoint for my own like kind of life, especially in kind of like society nowadays where there's more of like a selfish, like a push to be, consumerist and like, find joy in how much money you make or how you like, or what you buy or what you own. Whereas we have Maveerar that shows us in our own community and oftentimes in people we're related to or know or connect through family, people that have given like the greatest sacrifice, their own lives for like the greater good for our community, without asking anything more than that, like, that to carry the torch forward. I think it's actually a really important counterpoint, something that we don't often have here in Canada. Mm-hmm. And it's not something that it's taught often in school or anything, and it's something that it kind of renews my experience, like my feelings for every time in my Maveerar. And also like it reasserts the community of the Tamil community again and again.
Okay. Kirtika?
I do see it as a day that the entire community comes together to remember the sacrifices that were made by these people who selflessly gave up their lives for the betterment of the people living in Tamil Eelam. And because I was born back home, I see it as it's because of these people that I'm currently here today. As well, like I remind myself of how much I should appreciate my life and the things I have and how I could use what I have in order to move forward and to continue on with the torch that they've left behind. So on university campuses, the week, we consider it Maveerar Awareness Week, and we use that week to educate others around us, Tamils and non-Tamils, about what took place back home as well as about the Maveerar specifically.
And Raj?
Historically, I think our people were divided by different sectors, right? Religion and caste, divisional politics were there. But I think when the rise of these guys in the scene, Maveerar put everything away and put all into a one unity. That's how we came. So I think the Heroes Day is some day that we come in and pray and empower ourselves, right? Get the strength and forget about all the divisional stuff that we may have in our hearts and minds. So I think this is an excellent something that in our like we are able to follow and do it around the world, and putting everybody together around the world. I think Tamil people are celebrating it. So I think it is to it's not the exotic ritual event where you have exotic ritual stuff, but it's just to give you more of a energy. You see a strength when you see your countrymen and women are there together to pray and pay tribute to the fallen heroes.
Beyond remembrance and the memorial and the are there other events or other ways to remember beyond just the the one day? Are there other ways to remember the Maveerar?
Oh, sure. I mean, historically, I think we need to look at when the Heroes' Day was declared. 89 was chosen November 27 as the first only one day, and then over next year they're declaring a week. Heroes Week. That's how they started off. And till today, I think Heroes Week is the only one exist. Contradict to what some of us claiming that Heroes Month, but Heroes Week, where in Tamilam, people would go and do a lot of charity work, right? Plant trees, clean up, go and help elders' home and feed orphanage, these are activities that they do, the charity stuff, not just the emotional thing, but we need to get this to open up a path of charity stuff, right? Goodness, to bring out their internal feeling into an act of noble causes, right? So you would even on the going forward, I think that what we as Tamil needs to do is, push every Tamil people to get into the elders' home and help,
Prakash, is that happening, these acts that Raj has mentioned, that are we going beyond just the remembrance, but doing these charitable acts?
I mean, it kind of touches on what I was saying before of like, in the way like Tamil lives are here in, say, in Toronto, it's actually very difficult to for like the people to go out and do these charitable works. But I think like with a lot of activists I know, like Maveerar actually recharges our battery, like our spiritual and our social and emotional batteries to kind of go back and commit to those like activities as Raj was saying, of community service, of doing things not for like some personal gain, but but for the greater good, for the community, for like something selfless. And in our society, kind of drains that desire away, because it's a very like we're bombarded with these images of like people that are rich and famous and powerful and good looking, and they're raised up to like as idols because of that. But then here this week, we have these idols, these heroes that have like.
But do you think our community makes that connection between the Maveerar week and our consumer habits and the money we're spending maybe unnecessarily?
I think for certain people, like, I mean, for people that are like, that consistently go every year and then they have a really deep understanding of Maveerar. I mean, there's some people that haven't really like considered the full impacts of what it means. But like the activists I know that like are like really like every year they're performing. I mean, like Kiddu over here.
Definitely amongst the activists, but do you think with the wider
in the larger community that hasn't happened yet? I'll acknowledge that. But I think it's something that it's a reminder there, and for people that turn away from like that what we're normally taught, because the pressure of normative society is like.
Kirtika, on that same note, from the youth perspective, is that same level of connection, of memory, and of remembrance? Is it? Do you think within the youth is it there?
I think in 2009, when everything was out in front of them, out in the open, they the emotions were there, and people were feeding off on each other, whether it was like tears or smiles, successes, failures, feeding off on each other. At this point, people aren't hearing as much anymore, and already even I only knew about everything that was going on only in 2009, so I wasn't educated about it from my parents either. So when the younger youth, like high school kids, my own little brother, they don't know anything. Nothing even triggers them to go out there and learn. And as far as they're concerned, Maveerar is a day where they remember something that's happened already, and it's enough to just place the Kartikepu and think about it for that time being. But they don't know, why they fought or like what's supposed to happen after that. If they don't feel it as their struggle, they see it as a struggle from the past that that their parents encountered, and it's over now.
Do you think that trend will continue, or do you think there'll be?
Well, it definitely will continue, and if anything, only get worse if at this point right now we don't figure out a way to educate about our history, or to facilitate discussions and get the youth opinion and provide them a platform to not just learn but also express what they've learned.
And to connect that, Raj, with your generation, it's obvious that your generation either experienced it, saw it firsthand, or know it very well. Do you feel that the coming generations are going to miss out on that experience? Have we dropped the ball in developing that memory?
I think there are few reforms we need to make. I think the way that we do shows and stuff related to Heroes Day, why they died is justice and freedom. That's all. So end of the day, what are we doing to bring that justice and freedom for the people, right? So we need to go out and do certain activities that will show their inner heart why they died for. They didn't just pick up the gun and die, right? They wanted a good life for all of us, rest of us, right? So I think, for example, for kids born here, right, to have some art exhibition or something like that, they get them involved, get them to draw some art stuff, right, artworks, those kind of people, creative ideas, you can get them in and then teach them, like Kirtia was saying too, right? So rather than the performance based, some people go and sit down and watch the show, drama, stage shows and stuff, speeches and stuff, and then they go and poke at it, right? So I think that's where we need to break a little bit of introducing the changes.
Prakash, from your, as an activist, some might say that, a lot of our activists and even youth and of course older, they know the facts about the struggle. They know signal only, standardization, state-sponsored colonization. They know all that, but do you think, like Raj mentioned, they're missing the heart, the feeling that...
I think specifically like Maveerar, like the feeling is there. Like when like people like are touched by the feeling, like especially when you go to like the main event, and even among the students, like the level of volunteerism, like in my experience at York University, is my first experience. The level of like kind of selfless volunteerism, like people put in a lot of work in there. So there's something definitely feeling that, and I would say that's the feelings that come with it. And there's also social aspects.
I guess what we're getting at, it's definitely decreased since past generations.
So I think like the problem that everybody's kind of touching on is the fact that like ideologically, like political, like why did these things happen? Why did our freedom fighters fight and give the ultimate sacrifice? What drove them, and what are the implications to us? And then why things are still happening, and why 2009 happened. These haven't been clearly like debated and argued. Like the facts are known, right? And now, like especially with this month, like, and it's kind of poignant that like the UN is coming out admitting like the full facts that they completely failed. And this gives us an opportunity, and the discussion needs to be, and this is something I don't think the community did a lot like previously, in the sense of like talking like politically, like what are our different options? What are the different, like there's like and kind of in
we'll get to the different options on the table in the community a little later, but I wanted to further investigate whether our youth are remembering as lividly and fully as we would want them to. Kritika made the point from her observation, it's not as there, that full understanding isn't there. Do you agree?
I would agree with them that it's not there. Like I mean, I had the benefit of visiting Sri Lanka and in Elam like several times over like my life, and seeing how like my family live among Sinhalese, and they kind of like and the fear, the constant fear in the south, like and having the visceral like understanding. I think like a lot of youth like that haven't had that experience. It's something that like that is fading away, but at the same time, there's also like 2009 was I think a huge moment. Like even before 2009, even I would honestly say I didn't really understand it. But in 2009, with those like protests, those events, people started to get that feeling. Now it's definitely fading, and that's understandable and realistic, because the level of mobilization in 2009 can't be kept indefinitely, right? But then, and I'm not a prophet. I couldn't tell you what a solution to that is. I mean, like in my personal opinion, like struggle and talking and having that open dialogue, and later on, I think when we talk like around like the options, right, of how people can be involved in. And one of the things is, I think at this moment, like except for a few activists that are really deeply involved in organizations and in the struggle, a great deal of our community, like especially the youth, don't have a way of directly like interfacing into the struggle, being a part of a new struggle, except in times like Maveerar, which kind of brings it back, like with the volunteerism and the events.
But on that topic of how the community is organized and conducts our affairs, there's a disagreement sometimes on how the community should move forward, and there are different organizations and different strategies. Is that debate a fruitful debate?
Yeah, I think I have engaged with discussion with some of the activists and brought a couple of changes suggested. I don't think they're progressing in terms of how we want to do this, right? It is it's always going to remain like a show-based thing. So what my personal opinion would be is I don't mind having one centralized place where people come and see countrymen and women get strength, and that's fine. Paying tribute, that's good. But at the same time, we need to open different avenue to charity. 10% of 50,000 people showing up bring the hand food for charity people here in Canada. Then November 27 becomes a big day for them too. We are bringing that change in their hearts and mind, and they will come and pray too. That's the change I want to see. That's just something that we have to work on doing it. It's not like we close the door, we pray, and we go. That's going to die, fade away if my kids will not do anything but just showing them Tamil-based shows, music, dances. Because it is because there are a lot of other entertainment things happening on the TV, so colorful that will think. Only good thing we can grow, like they have to do something.
Okay, coming back to the organization, some will say like before the 2009, there was a lot of unity. There was one strategy, one direction. Now, I think the reality is that there are different strategies, different directions, and different groups, not just in Canada, but across the world.
That's right.
Is that a good thing? Do you think to have multiple strategies, multiple approaches, and sometimes where they disagree?
Are you asking in terms of Heroes Day? Or
no, as a community.
I think that's the progressing. That shows that we are able to, because if you look at Canada, we have conservative, liberals, NDP. They have a lot of platforms. They believe in different concepts when it comes to social aspect, right? So I think that's progressing in terms of putting all the eggs in one basket, right? You get them cracked and destroy all of them. Rather than that, but when it comes to Heroes Day or something that we had to be together. There's no question about walking away, running your own show and stuff like that, right? You may have a difference of opinions, change may be done too, but you had to work with the system so that we don't spoil that one day that we gather.
But do you think that's working? And Prakash, if you can share your input on this idea of different approaches, different strategies, do you think that's working, or is there conflict within the different strategies?
So I completely agree with Raj. I mean, and the thing is and there has to be that battery. He hit it right on the nail. Like Heroes Day, that should be united. There shouldn't be any difference there. Like this is a goal, and the same is we should be united for the goal of Tamilism, like Tamil nationalism, right? Now, I don't need to agree with everything else that Raj does. Like certain tactics, and I'll be honest, like in a lot of community organizations and people
let's put it that way. Some groups will have accepted a solution within a united Sri Lanka, and some will say Tamilism is the objective. So how do you reconcile that?
That's going to be a little problem because like taking a short-term solution is okay, as long as they have to have a next solution in place. They need to agree, okay, let's go for a short-term solution, but we still continue to fight for the next step. Then they can collaborate, they can work together, there's a clear line. But somebody is already agreeing that they can settle down with this system and this is good enough. I think there's a big difference of opinion that it's going to make both parties in trouble.
If they have the different goal.
Exactly. So I think internally they need to sit down and discuss, okay, this is the objective, this is where we want to head to eventually, but we may be going to B and then C and D, right? So slow steps. But the problem is not all of them are open and they won't agree on the end thing, which is the Maveerar died for, right? That shouldn't be a negotiated stuff. We shouldn't even entertain that idea about where our end are going to be.
I mean, and I think that's the thing, right? Like, if you're going to work together, y'all have to agree on a final.
But if the fundamental goal, I mean, the final goal is fundamentally different. separate state or?
I mean,
is that
well, the question is because, well, first of all, right now there's a unitary state, right? The question is, do you want to keep that the same or do you want to change it? And those people who want to change it, I think, are fundamentally in line with the spirit of Maveerar Naal. Like our Maveerars didn't die to have the same problem going on. They wanted something different, and to be like, and I think it's like a complete like wash to say, I support our community. And I'm here at like Maveerar Naal, and then be like, I believe in a unitary state. That's completely contradictory. You can't, like, the Maveears saw a problem and they struggled for it. They paid for the highest price, and then to now go around and say that, you know what, it's. I think there's you can excuse certain people in the sense that after 2009 there's a lot of despair. There's a lot of people weren't sure what to go ahead with.
Just to play the devil's advocate, if somebody
Go ahead.
if somebody said, well, the people who are on the ground have voted for a party, the TNA, who's looking to find a solution within a united Sri Lanka. If that is reflective of the people who live there, and that's what they've cast their ballot, can we in the diaspora disagree with them and tell them that no, this should be the final objective?
You have to understand one thing. Speaking of separatism in Sri Lanka, it's illegal, right? They can catch you in trouble. And at the same time, TNA wasn't born from the sky. It wasn't. It was actually identified and point fingered by the Tamil representatives. That's how they came into play. Anybody can start a team and say little bit much better than what TNA is asking, and ask to why other people didn't get voted. Why TNA get all support? Because they know that it's not the eventual destiny, but they will take us to next step. But for now, that's it. That's why they voted. That doesn't mean they are settling down with what TNA is promising, and TNA knows that too. TNA
sorry, we
go
have to
for
pause.
it. Yeah, please.
Dear viewers, it's time for a quick break. Please join us on this important discussion in this important week. Before we went to break, Raj, you were saying?
About TNA getting endorsement. So, like I was telling you, they can't advocate for separatism in Sri Lanka as per Sri Lankan rule, right? So, but that doesn't mean people are settling down with what TNA is proposing. It could be TNA is seen as people, legitimate representatives by Tamil leaders in the past. And they created it, nobody else. So anybody coming into scene should have been taken the endorsement from them, right? That's why TNA is going to survive, and it's going to go in the future too. And there's nothing wrong with it. They're just taking a baby step to the thing. And like I always tell people, don't try to sing with their speed, right? Let TNA work on their own phase, and we diaspora have lot of freedom to advocate to the next step, which is Tamil. So let's not sing, TNA is talking about united solution. That doesn't mean we should, because as per, we have to understand the reality here, right? Those people can't even get to the street to protest in Sri Lanka. That's the situation right now. So they are in open jail, and let them do whatever they can as per slow phase. And then I think we diaspora needs to understand that. Let's not conflict or make TNA look bad or anything like that. We just progress slowly to a thing, and we will meet at one point when TNA walks out of the peace negotiation, and they know, obviously, the international community needs to know that we have taken all the steps necessary to walk out.
Kirtiga, from a youth perspective, is there the same level of understanding of what's happening now, given that it's a non-violent movement now, that it's political in nature, and the international community is playing a role? Are youth in tune with what's happening?
Luckily for me, I have friends like Prakash and stuff, but I actually call him when I have I'm confused or have questions, and that's me who's trying my best to keep up. But even then, I'm not even educated enough about what's taking place. I'm still working on that. But in terms of a lot of people that I know, it's a problem that they see as over because the armed struggle is over, and they don't see a solution coming from it through political ways, or they don't know what's taking place. It's just something that's done, you know, and they think, you know, based on what they hear on the news and what they hear like from people around them, it's like, oh, things are okay now there because the war is over.
Do you think that youth have become very acclimatized to the Western lifestyle, that they only remember, or they only have a connection during Maveerar Naal or during May? Does it go beyond that? Is there any personal interest to?
I personally, unless they have, unless their parents have been, you know, teaching this to them, or they personally know people who've lost their lives, there's no personal connection. I think part of the reason in 2009 they were able to participate in what was happening by like having something to do, like going to the protest. So they felt like they were part of the struggle. There was something for them to be a part of. At the moment, there's specific organizations, and the only people who are part of it are the people who are in these organizations. So the youth who aren't a part of any organization have nothing actively happening in their lives for them to say, this is what I'm doing and this is why I'm doing it. It's just like other people are doing things, I think.
You know, some of the community has been able to travel back to Sri Lanka since 2009. Have their experiences changed or deepened their understanding of the struggle?
So I know somebody that like, so I have two examples, like two really great examples. So one was like with a very political family, very politicized, very pro-Elam. They went. This was the first time their daughter had a chance to visit, and she was shocked and appalled. Like, she's like, I can't believe our people are living like this. This is horrific. She was able to see, like, to analyze it politically, because she'd gotten education all through her life, and she's never been before, right? Now there's another family that was apolitical. They were much more like westernized, and they were like, you know, Elam is like a past thing. We're gonna like go forward, and it was actually another young lady too, first time visiting back, and she was like, oh no, it all seemed really well, and everything seemed okay, and I'm like, okay, so like, you know, like what parts did you visit? And like, she's like, oh, like some of the, like, you know, I was mostly in the south, and I got to go like, you know, like the east and stuff. It was a little like poor, but people are poor. I'm like, no, like, do you see, like, but there's a stark difference. Did you notice, like, you notice a difference between the east? So, and this is what I mean, like, and I think it touches on that fact, right? Like a lot of our youth, like, as I said, like specific activists that are really already involved in organizations and already are on point. Okay. But in a wider scale, people are like there has been an opening of the door for like a wider mass.
But sometimes people, you know, Raj, people say, you know, we shouldn't go to Sri Lanka. We should, you know, just focus on our life here. Do you think there's value in going back?
There's what Prakash was saying, that the second family he was talking about. A lot of people find Sri Lanka as a holiday destiny, right? They want to go have enjoy the fun and stuff. So when they go in that mind,
I'm sorry, within our community,
exactly.
I think most go back for family,
family,
and show their children where they grew up. Do you think?
Unless if it is a very critical and you have still relatives dying or, you know, on the bed, you know, that's, you can't really avoid those situations. Okay. But other than that, I don't think it's going there doing accused war criminal on the power, because it's going to show negative of what happened to us, right? It will say we can't just come back and talk about human rights when, you know, we go there often and have fun and then come back here. Right?
Yeah, I don't think most of in the community go to have fun. I think most of it is to visit family and to show their children where they grew up. And the reason I asked that is I had a friend who had visited, and she wasn't very political. But after the visit to seeing, you know, her homeland and where her parents grew, she grew a deeper attachment to the struggle and to the whole history, because she saw in real life the underdevelopment, the effect of the war, and on the family and on her cousins, and that created a greater political consciousness. So,
but I have friends when they came back and say that we are putting up barking at the wrong tree, and where people have already moved on, having cell phones, iPhones, and stuff like that, and all that stuff. This was going on for ages, right? Okay. But I asked him if he went to Vanni. No. he went from Colombo to Jaffna, spent the time, which hard hit was Vanni, right? Today he should have gone there to find out what is going on. If a military is every 5 miles with the gun, what do you expect the people to tell?
In the anecdote I told, that was actually they went from Colombo to Jaffna, and that was from the experience in Jaffna. And so, Prakash, what's your opinion? Is there value in going back and seeing, I'm talking about this for the younger generation, to see what's happened, the devastation?
So I think there's a very clear nuance there that has to be touched on, right? There's and as Raj said it too, it's our families are back home, like, so we can't just disconnect, right? Like, and that's important. We keep those connections alive, but we also need to, and this comes back to like the politicization, right? When people go back, they should be very clear. Look, our families are suffering. Now, there's two ways we can do it. We can do like the regular, let's go visit the family vacation style, blah blah blah. We visit, we go to Gold Face Beach and all that, like whatever it's called. I can't remember anymore, but and we're gonna and keep supporting the oppression of our families by funding like the Sri Lankan tourist industry. Or we
but I think that, just to me, I think the majority of the families are going to their home, whether it's in Jaffna or Trinco, Batticaloa.
But even like visiting like family is like a vacation. I remember going back and I'm visiting family, and for me as like an unpoliticized youth, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go meet my granny. We're gonna I'm gonna sour sabra boro and like some real food and like but like it's much more different now. Where it's I think like the approach has to be different especially when you're taking kids, right? The approach has to be like, look, and I think there has to be a political element to any trip back now, and this is where, and I think like a campaign around like preventing tourism to Sri Lanka just for like holidays. But an actual like when we're gonna go back and we're gonna actually specifically make sure that like there's a lot of problems. So anybody that goes back is going to specifically try to assist our community somehow, like an explicit intent, right? It's either through specifically, helping our families out. My dad recently went back and he did the same travel and he noted all that, and he couldn't help like giving charity away. Like he ended up like spending all his like travel money on like every family like he run into, like he knew from back in the days. They're like our lives is horrible. Like we're difficult. There's like we have no hope. We're trying to send our kids to school. Nobody's like there's no government support for that. It's even worse than before, like with the loss of the tigers. Like
so you see value in going back and helping directly,
I mean, in a very
charitable way,
not charity, in a very political way, right? Because right now our community is being destroyed, right? So like what this touches on.
In your case, your father is helping people that he grew up with. Families that he knew.
My dad went back for like a family event.
A family,
like a marriage, right? Like he had to be there. He goes back, but then he didn't like. But he also like he wanted to go. Like this was the first time he'd been able to go back to Yapanam in several decades. And he explained, he's just like in taking the bus from like through Vanni, and he's just like doesn't get off, but like you see all the and you see soldiers everywhere. Everything's run by the army, and then he spoke about it, and then he spoke to some of like our relatives that were in the Vanni, and he directly connected, and obviously in that case, giving charity in that way isn't bad. Like like supporting, it's a social project. There should be a social project involved, not just we're gonna
visit to the family, not just a visit.
Not just a visit for the family, but like we should recognize that we like, and I think this is where that nuance is, right? Like there's some people that are like, we're going to work with the government.
I think my general understanding is everyone who goes back, whether if they're going to their village or they go to a temple or church, they do help out in some way, right?
You have to.
You have to, exactly. It's there. And I think most people do it willingly. Kirtika, for your generation, who grew up here, or most are now born and raised here, do you think there's value in these going on a family trip back home to see the land which their parents grew up in and have a connection that way?
For sure, especially having been raised here, we like our lives here. We take a lot for granted. So that's how I was when I went back. I was 14, and being in Canada, I was very annoyed by the fact that I had to go at the time. But when I got there and I saw how much less people had, and that sparked a flame inside me that that's only gotten bigger since the fact that I wanted to go back and help, and the fact that when in 2009, when things were at its peak, the reason I got involved is because I saw the state that it was in back then. So like being able to see that, and when you compare it to the life you have, you should want to to help, and not just our country, but any country that you go to and you see someone like struggling and suffering, and you have so much that you take for granted.
Do you think a lot of kids are reluctant to go now, or their families, or there's that? Anyway, something to think about when we return from break. Dear viewers, please join us. If you have any questions or comments or thoughts you'd like to share, do call us and share them. Thank you. Welcome back, dear viewers. Just before the break, we're discussing whether trips to Sri Lanka, family trips to Sri Lanka, help strengthen and deepen our younger generation's connection to the struggle and to the depth of sacrifice our Maveerar gave. Kirtika, just before we left, we're discussing, are some of our youth, are they reluctant to go to Sri Lanka, or are they, is there any interest to go and see where these fights have happened, to see the people who've suffered, who've sacrificed, the families, and to see their own connection?
The basic understanding of the fact that there was war and that there are people suffering there, that's there. So
Yeah.
I do believe that a lot of youth would love to go there to do charitable work. That's for sure.
Do you think there's value in that, in terms of understanding? Definitely in terms of doing charitable work for our people, yes. But in terms of understanding, if they were to go, is there value in knowing, fully knowing the war and the struggle?
Yes. Like even if they don't, like there's really good intention in that, right?
Okay,
Even if it's it would only be a temporary solution, though. I have to say that, because it's not like a politically driven trip where they're working on something that will create a long-term solution, which would prevent people from suffering further, longer after they leave and come back. But as a temporary solution, it would to benefit the people for sure.
I mean, and using an example that like I've studied, like the Jewish diaspora in Israel, right? And I was speaking to like a Jewish Zionist. Like in a lot of ways, I don't politically agree with like Zionism. I feel like they replicate a lot of the problems, but what they do is like pragmatically is genius. They pay students to go to Israel and to like live on the settlements, see the people, meet it firsthand, and there's a political element to it. They do charitable work. They help build the settlements, illegal, but they help do it. But they meet the people that are there, and they make the connections. They meet their families. They meet but it's not just a la-di-da, we're going to send you on vacation. It's an educational trip. It's a political trip. It's built like that, and it's something that our community hasn't started doing yet, right?
Definitely.
It's being done on a small scale, family to family level, where like families go back, they see
and
their
village to village,
right?
Yeah. Raj, in your generation, are there any mistakes, if any, that your generation is making with their children in terms of developing that history, that memory? Because some will say that a lot of, those who are in their 40s and 30s of children, they have bad memories, bad experiences of the war, and they don't want their kids to know about it, so they don't talk about it. And Kirtika mentioned she didn't know much about it growing up, right? Do you think is that happening?
I see here and there. I think I had friends whose parents were killed by Indian Army. They never spoken or they never associated with any Tamil events. Like over the drink, I found out that it happened to them, and it touched my heart. But then I drill into it, and then what the reasoning is, like you were saying, they don't want to go in there, right? But certainly you can't walk away, because the kids are going to watch movies, violence movies, war theme movies, and all this stuff. So they are getting exposed. So I think it's not going to mentally affect them anyway. But the problem is the parents failing on when they fail to teach them the history, the things that we went through as slaves to a majority of the thing. We have to teach them, otherwise they won't stand up, because we've been enslaved by British and everybody coming from outside. We still having the inferior complex, and we can't speak out. The Tamil people mostly, I found that they always, when they on the corporate world and stuff like that, they have a little reluctant to speak out of what the ideas and stuff like that. We need
What
to
are some
develop
ways
that.
in which parents can create this memory in their children?
Taking them to the events, for Black July, for events, art exhibitions, right? Or some of the events cater towards, certain things. Genocide Month, for example, right? It's full, like all 30 days, they have some events and stuff like that, which I still needs to get them change some of the activities, right? So the kids can come and, participate and get educated. So I think those are the days that we need to November for heroes sacrifice, right? So we get the kids involved in there too. I think the parents who went through a lot of in the past. I think they should take it up with their children. This is the only way the children will stand up, and they know how to fight it a non-violent way, and always start saying no for things that they don't agree with.
Paresh, what are beyond
Yeah.
those suggestions? What are other examples of how, as a community, whether youth or elder, we can remember?
I mean, first I want to acknowledge that, like myself, like Kiru, like I had no teaching from my family either.
Okay.
In 2009, when those like moments came, and I became curious, and then I did the research, and then I found out. I think one of the huge.
See, I think sorry to interrupt you, but I think it's a minority of our
and
community
that's what I'm touching on,
who willingly do the research and educate.
and then get
so how
engaged in
can
the
we
topic.
how can we educate the rest of the majority?
So like one of the things, and so it's coming to is the fact that right now, like our community is kind of set in a very organizational, like organizations are individually doing this, and there's movements away from that. Like like organizations are collaborating, as you were saying, unifying. But I also think we need to engage the whole community, that even like the average family can take part of it, like in a mass campaign, something like a boycott.
Beyond organizations, campaigns, but like, within the family.
But that's what I'm saying. Like first of all, we need to give something to families to engage in, right?
Okay.
Like you can't just be like, hey, you're even Tamil. Go talk to your kids about this. And like parents have a hard time communicating with their kids generally. You need to give them a forum, a reason why, and reason why kids will want to like be like, hey, what's going on? Like they'll go and engage with their parents. Like I was forced to engage with my parents, and then I started finding out we have people that have sacrificed their lives. We have people that are like in multiple different organizations and struggled against during the Chalvanagam era, and then like in other in the full uprising. I engaged with them, and then there was something going on that like there's discussed. So as a community, I mean, we have to remember we're a national community. We're an oppressed nation, right? So we shouldn't just be thinking in organizations and campaigns are exactly right, but we should be thinking about how can we get like the base of our nation. Here in Canada, like a lot of working class people that are working like 9-to-5 jobs that don't just have like time to talk about politics. So give them the tools, give them a campaign, an idea that they can then engage in doing. And when they're doing something, their kids like they can take their kids along, and then they start finding out. This is why Maveerar is good and kind of bad at the same time, because it's great because it's an event that it engages, but it's only one day or a week of a year. Like a year-long campaign that has actual political ramifications would be a huge change.
That's exactly why we have a Black History Month, February. That's what to show, right? They're remembering what the slavery went through and all that stuff. Giving them a strength and stuff like that. The community is they're making progress on that. So same thing needs to happen for our
That's an interesting suggestion, Mary. The analogy with Black History Month. Earlier this year, I think it was last year they had the province of Ontario announced January is Tamil Heritage Month.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Should this remembrance be carried into that? Because I think, from my understanding, a lot of it is just the culture, right? The Tamil culture, the music, arts.
Sure.
Should that incorporate remembrance of civilian deaths, Maveerar, and
I think the two things needs to happen on the Genocide Month. That we need to work on that.
No, sorry, not Genocide, the Tamil Heritage Month, January.
That's a good thing. But for us to work on the other months, right?
Okay.
So Genocide Month should be declared. Maybe a month of May, right? And then Heroes Week, I think we need to do a little
Sorry,
bit of
I think what I'm getting at is the January, and you can answer this.
Sure.
Should the January month, which has been declared by the city and by the province as Tamil Heritage Month, should that include thing like the Maveerar, the war, the politics, or should it just be the culture?
Because that's only falls into January, right? So
Yeah.
we can't really cover anything that we have already
From
on
November
different months
and May.
So we had to engage on the different platform
Okay.
and create a process to get them endorsed.
Kritika, you're going to...
I think it should be acknowledged, but I think even beyond that, we need to education-wise. I think because you were talking about that earlier, it should be like our history and stuff should be incorporated, whether it's in Tamil class or like maybe even starting at younger ages, because we're coming to a point where we're getting generations of youth who don't even speak Tamil. So here they were fighting for our right to speak Tamil in that country, and we're still doing the same, but we're going to have a bunch of youth who don't speak Tamil to begin with. So like there's going to be a lot of like disconnection. So I think like starting at younger ages through Tamil classes, or even in the family home, whether it's like through puzzles, like the way you teach math or science school subjects, because that's how a lot of us know about Canadian Remembrance Month or Canadian history, right? It's taught to us in school. So because we have to think of the way how youth perceive things, how youth understand things. Right now it's through social media, it's through the school system, which is still in place. Like we're programmed to learn this way, right? And then, beyond that is going to be like the arts and like other ways, like computers and games and stuff.
Definitely. Unfortunately, time's up. But before we leave, just very quickly, I want you guys to share how you personally remember Maveerar Naal.
So myself.
Very quickly.
Well, yeah, first of all, like I try to like live by the ethics and like the ideas of Maveerar Naal all year round. Like, that's my thing.
So I would have to say I constantly try to teach myself of what's taking, like I keep up with the news of what's happening right now. At the same time, I have a lot of work to do in terms of learning the history.
Do you also you write poetry?
I write poetry.
Okay.
I actually take part in the the big day, and as well as maybe 12, I think we light up a candle at home. All my children, they're aware of it. It is
so beyond just
something. Yeah,
at home
you start it off, and then you go get to the place where you gather with the rest of the countrymen and women and pay tribute to the dead.
Thank you, Prakash, Kirtika, and Raj. Thank you, dear viewers, for tuning in to TVI's remembrance of Maveerar Naal. Before we conclude, we'd like to leave you with something to think about. When our perils are past, shall our gratitude sleep? I'm your host, Parthi Khandavo. Please always remember and never forget. Thank you.
தமிழரின் பிம்பம் உங்கள் டிவி.